In 3, 2, 1, we're live. Shop Class Podcast. We got a special night. We got Matthew Bloomquist, Matthew Barbacek, Duke, and Nick. And we're going to talk about the specifically. We're going to talk about the it's like the Wall Assembly. Let's see. It's called the Wall Assembly Sweet 16. And we've got a judge in here. Matt was one of the judges, and Barbacek was a participant, his student. So, Matt, let's start with this. First of all, Fine Home Building is like an old magazine, right? This is okay. We just went over this, but just kind of give us, for someone.
Yeah. So anybody that's like home building, whatever, Fine Home Building magazine is on their 40th year anniversary this year. So
I got
it. They started like right around like when I was born, like literally, like so. There, I'm 40 years old. So they've joined in and become like teamed up with BS and Beer, which BS and Beer is Building Science and Beer show, which was okay. So BS and Beer was like a grassroots movement up in Maine where some builders just wanted to get together, talk about building better, building science, better building efficiency, sustainability, blah, 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 things like that. Well, they started, I forget how I think they started doing like a show or a podcast. Well, a couple of them had podcasts. I don't know. So anyways, some of the builders in Kansas City area got to know these guys, and same time I was getting to know these people, and they're like, oh, we should start a BS and Beer in Kansas City. So they asked Mike and Emily and Dan and all these guys that kind of started this one up in Maine, and they're like, hey, do you mind if we do a BS and Beer in Kansas City? And they're like, sure, whatever. This isn't anything real official. It's just it was kind of a fun hangout thing. Well, thanks to COVID, so what they do is they host little, kind of like what we do right now, bring in a special guest. Someone comes and talks about, efficiency, wall assemblies, what sustainability, carbon.
Is this the Kansas City one? How do I get to that one?
This is the official BS and Beer show. So What happened was COVID hit and they couldn't do these BS and Beer gatherings anymore, right? We couldn't go anywhere to gather and meet. In Kansas City, it just started their club or group or whatever. And Travis, and Travis, like, I remember talking to him about it. He's like, man, I don't know what to do. I'm like, go online. And he's like, I don't know anything about that. That's not my thing. He's not a tech guy. And actually that picture right there, the blower door on the left, that's my students when Jake came and did a blower door test. But, BS and Beer up in Maine, they're like, well, let's host a BS and Beer show. Like, let's all jump on Zoom because, Zoom last March, April, May was a big thing. So let's just jump on Zoom and invite everybody on, kind of like what we do on here. Everybody can jump on and talk and whatever. And well, each week they're like, oh, you guys should do that again. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do that again, do it again. And then Kansas City would host a show, and I think Nathan in Chattanooga, he would host a show. And
wow, this is cool.
And so it through COVID, this thing caught a lot of ground and attention. So they have like, I'd say 35 to 55 people in the audience every single time.
Wow.
And so, we've all gotten to know who it is. We know the names of each other, blah, blah, blah. So they, partnered, and a couple of these guys had written articles for Fine Home Building and Green Building Advisor and all this. So they teamed up, and it was getting so much traction. Fine Home Building, probably was like, hey, we should probably be a part of this as well, because it was so much good content. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, and Barbacek follows a lot of these people on Instagram, and he can attest to the good content that's on Instagram. Well, now it's getting put into like an hour and a half long show, kind of like we do. And so Fine Home Building teamed up with them, became their media sponsor. So now they could use Fine Home Building Zoom account to host and have an audience and better features. And, it became a little bit more of a professionally put together thing, even though it's still very laid back and relaxed kind of thing. And I mean, each week they have amazing topics. They then post it to YouTube, I believe, or at least on the Fine Home Building website. Yeah, it's been, so it took off. COVID made it take off, and
awesome. Yeah. It accelerated the growth. I mean, we were headed that way anyway, online rather than.
Oh yeah. And I mean,
person is like the most expensive way to get together. It's good, but it's just it's kind of unrealistic when you have. I mean, television figured this out years ago. They were like, "Oh, we'll just sell everybody these little TV sets for their house." This is just a smaller version of the television. That's all.
So that's how it all kicked off. And last year, since there was no sports, there was no March Madness, Travis in Kansas City is a basketball fan. He's like, hey, let's do a Sweet 16 tournament wall assembly with all these Instagram people and stuff. And then it just went crazy.
Here's the Sweet 16, just like teams.
So this year, they weren't going to do it because it was a lot of work for Travis and Joe to mess with. Well, Connor came in, and we all know Connor. We're friends with Connor here and stuff. And Connor convinced Travis, hey, let's do a student-based one. And Travis like, I don't know. Travis, and then Connor's like, dude, I'll take care of everything. Travis, of course, like, okay, fine, you do it, got it. So Connor put all this together, and I mean, just freaking nailed it. And they pulled together all these judges, and like I said, I felt like the freshmen getting pulled up to the varsity team amongst these people and stuff.
Who's this guy?
Right. So all these people on here, I mean, are amazing. Either architects, building science guys, girls. Mike Girton, amazing builder and fine home building guy. I mean, he's a freaking rock. He's like he's a celebrity, in our world. And so since I was part of it last year, and I had students, and so that's kind of how I got tied into doing this, and it was awesome. Like, I mean, I probably learned just as much being a judge as anybody else watching. I mean, it was.
Wow, that's cool. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, and then these sponsors there in the middle.
That's teaching right there. Like, on years that I learn a lot, I'm just like, man, this job's amazing. Like helping.
Yeah.
It's not just that. It's you get to learn stuff. I think I got this year. I learned a lot about Onshape, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot. But anyway, yeah. So that's cool. Now what are these criteria things?
Okay, so over here, the students, so like Barbercheck students, they took this rubric, judging rubric, and we based it off of judging off performance, buildability, durability, embodied carbon, cost, and life cycle analysis. Now, embodied carbon and life cycle analysis was kind of tough. It's just becoming, I don't know. It's kind of subjective. It's also kind of, you can put numbers to it, which they're starting to do. And they did this for the Final Four, which was really cool and really interesting. Like, it was so awesome. Like, it's real intriguing.
These are off the chart.
Well, it's because they didn't vote. They didn't vote.
Oh, I thought
that's the thing. Because nobody knows how, like, and you'll have to watch the replay of the conversation.
Okay.
Because Christine and then Williamson and Chris, I think his last name's Magwood. He was the one who did the embodied carbon like analysis, which is like this new software program they're using. I think it's called Beam and stuff. But it was really cool. I mean, it was super interesting. It's they're trying to find a way to truly measure embodied carbon and the carbon carbon footprint and blah blah blah, things like that. Which is becoming a big deal.
Carbon, like is it how much carbon it took to make the thing, or how much it traps, or
all of it?
Okay.
Like it's, I'm not gonna lie, I get it, but I don't. Barbercheck, and you watched it. Like, to get your head around that conversation was, it was a good conversation. It was a little intense, I guess you could say. But at the time, I mean, it was a lot of professionals just like throwing out stuff, and you're just like, whoa, like
Okay, so steam engine, high carbon, electric train, low carbon. But it took a lot to make that electric train because it's got a lot of copper in the windings of the motor, whereas the steam train probably has no copper and it's a lower cost device, although it burns a lot over time. So you have to make this judgment. Is that kind of how crazy?
Yeah. So, and that's what it came down to. It was one of these things where, and really, they just kind of wanted to show and measure like the obvious things using certain things that was kind of the obvious. Okay, this is better, but then it's, and we won't get into it on here, but
Okay.
Because the argument can be like, okay, well, I just use this wood fiber exterior insulation board, which is super awesome for environment, but for me to get it, maybe it had to come from Washington or Oregon, but I can get
diesel truck.
I can get, or I can get something else that just comes, from Kentucky, which is a couple states away. Well, maybe it was worse, but transportation is like, building and transportation are like the two big horrible people in, for pumping carbon into the atmosphere and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if as soon as you so it's okay. Did Tesla trucks drive the insulation to me, but then what's it take to build the Tesla truck? Or and that's why the conversation just keeps on going. And but it was really cool. I mean, the idea was to get this into the conversation, and they definitely did it, and it was awesome.
This is what's going to drive the change anyway.
And that was the other half of the argument.
So you could have like carbon fiber automobiles, but every car is going to cost $100,000. So
yeah. And then the argument comes, well, if you really want to be good about this, don't build anything.
Right.
So, which was part of why the retrofit did so well, because now you're taking this, buildings in New York City and making them better. They're already there. You're not using any more land. It's multiple families live in it. So, it kind of, it brought it all in. It was cool. It was fun. Like the kids learned a lot. The judges were amazing. Like there was awesome sponsors. There was awesome prizes. Connor did a bang up job. We're already talking about doing a third annual, and whether it's student involved or a student and a professional involved one, retrofit one, we don't know. It's
I bet the retrofit's kind of interesting. Empire State Building has done stellar work in that department. They're super efficient, but they're as efficient as they can be considering they were designed in 1933. So there's only so much you can do. But and they do weird things like, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard some buildings will take in steam. Oh, I think we had a guest on here that said they take in steam so they can make their own power because they want to be more efficient at creating power instead of, so there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. And that's what I like about it, because basically what you're teaching is engineering. It's the power to weight ratio that cannot be bought. You have to design this. This is tough work. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to make it bigger or thicker or easier or cost more. No, because you're trying to drive the cost down. You can't make it lighter because then it doesn't work. So like there's this power to weight ratio that always is a battle. But there are computers getting better at this, like regenerative or generative design, which like does an AI thing to figure it out. It's crazy. Let me ask you this, Barbacek, which one is yours here? Let's start at the back here. Can we follow your journey?
I don't know. I don't think mine's on there.
No, yeah. So Barbacek. Okay, so it was supposed to be Sweet 16. As you can see, there's only 8. Okay. So we actually had 9 submittals. Barbacek students being one. So Barbacek's kids sent in their mobile sauna wall assembly. Which was, was definitely acceptable for what we did. Like, we're talking same material, same style. There's some walls in here that were could be compared to what Barbacek said. But since obviously they would be the odd person, and theirs was such a unique, not that the wall assembly was overly unique, but they had been judging it on the use of a unique situation rather than just normal living occupancy. They decided to go ahead and take theirs out of the competition to make the pairings and stuff. So it was one of those things where their assembly got a lot of praise and everything from Travis and the people, those guys, and like I said, Barber Check's kids came away with a nice little prize package.
Nice.
For them, and tons, and which was probably one of the biggest gifts out of all this. Yeah, from the sponsors, like few of the sponsors. Fine Home Building gave all the students a free Rockwool. Is sending them stuff.
That's awesome. Wow, just for participating. Yeah,
the Intelligent Membranes, which I'm just becoming familiar with, is supposed to send them stuff. And then Fine Home Building Magazine gave the students all free online subscriptions for, I'm guessing, for like a year or whatever, which, wow. I mean, if you get on there and go digging through all that, there's a 40 years of knowledge sitting there. Yeah, plus everything that comes out.
I'm kind of jealous of that. I'm going to have to steal their login info or something.
Dude, yeah. I could probably.
The kids got the access. I was like, Gabe, give me your password.
At Barber Check, I could probably get it for you if you want. I could probably snag one.
I don't. It's not like a major thing. It's probably one of those things. I figured that would be the case. I figured it wouldn't be too much of an ask to say, hey, I'd like that, but it's also not much of an ask for Gabe and I to share the same account. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah.
But instead of like one more email, they have to check if it's a horse apiece. Then unless you think that's inappropriate, then I won't do that. But.
No, I could say something like, hey, because here's the thing, I have one of my own I've had for years. I pull stuff off there all the time because you can print off like PDFs of the article, just like the article that you searched.
Yeah.
For me, I did, because we did our attic ventilation detail that Mike Gurton did, and I printed that off and we, showed the kids, and that's what we did and stuff. But yeah, I could, it wouldn't be a hard, I don't think it'd be a hard flex to get. Like, I think they'd be pretty willing to help out and stuff. And really, because they offered my students one whenever during COVID. I got asked to be on a panel with at the time Justin, who was the head editor for Fine Home Building. I was on there with a few other shop teachers or construction teachers, I guess, giving them some insight on what they could maybe do to help out during COVID times. And they gave, I don't know if any of my students took advantage of it, but they gave any of my students that wanted a free subscription, year subscription. So
nice.
Like I said, it's putting in an email. I wouldn't think they would. So I'll ask for you, Matt. Like I said, worst they say is no.
Sure. Yeah. It's cool. I'd probably use it. Yeah. I get Journal of Light Construction. But to be honest, I haven't used their online stuff. I don't know if do you get that subscription? Sure.
I just started getting theirs. I've used their online stuff for a while, and I just started getting their magazine. Like, I like theirs. They have this stuff too, but like, I feel like they get a little deeper into even the business side of things too. Like
they do. Yeah.
There's a lot of like project management and business side of stuff. I seem to find myself going there for a lot of stuff like that.
It's a bit over students' heads, it's kind of like it's quite a bit over my head, and a lot of it, but it is, I don't know. I think I like the cleanliness of it. Yeah. I don't know. It's like a good publication. Like it's, you're not like distracted by a bunch of pop-ups when you flip through the magazine, and it's a good magazine. And, they seem to archive their stuff pretty well digitally as well. But sometimes I like having the physical magazine as well. It's nice to have media that's not connected to every other form of media sometimes, if you know what I mean.
I grew up reading, Road and Track magazine.
Yeah.
and then Hot Rod magazine. Man, and Grassroots Motorsports was fantastic for ideas. The first car I ever bought was because of one page article in Grassroots Motorsports. So that's all it takes is like somebody with a really good article giving you a tip, and then you're like, man, I got to do that. Just that inspiration, you know? So I know it's a different topic, but same idea. You know, these magazines are made by people that are passionate and they're trying to help out, you know?
Yeah. And what's cool is now, and like the part I think I've benefited from the most in this, and for me, it started through the Instagram and connected with you guys, was the networking. Like this put Barbercheck's kids on their radar. You know, like my name, you know, you go on findhomebuilding.com, you can probably type my name up and it'll pop up in 3 different things, article, you know. So like I know these people personally now, where I'm on an email chain with them at the moment. Like it's the networking was amazing. Like, I mean, they put, you know, Dylan the winner, his name is in these people's conversations. You know, Thomas, my former student, you know, his name pops up now, and he's met Steve Basic and Jake Bruton, you know, down in Columbia, Missouri and stuff, you know. So they, you know, if they go looking for people to try to hire, they're like, you know, hey, let's call, you know, Barbercheck students. That you know, Gabe, he did this, you know, he put in something. Or let's call Matt students, you know, Thomas, he put in an assembly that got to Final Four. And I mean, the networking, not only to those judges and people, but to the companies, you know, T-Stud, which is big time up and comer and getting really hot in this arena. Fine Home Building, you know, Huber Wood, Rockwool, you know, it's, I mean, to be able to reach out now and be like, hey, you know, my students did this, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're going to be doing this project. Do you think you guys could help out? I mean, having the ability to confidently go and ask those people that stuff now just through this connection, that's big time, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to listen to this episode. I'm gonna get into this. I'm excited because off topic, but like I haven't bought a house yet, so I want to screw it. I want to buy a piece of land and build something. It sounds more fun, you know. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be worse.
Well, you know, and you know, Barbercheck, you probably guys haven't gotten to do this yet, of course, but you know, like we started doing blower door tests and stuff with all this building science stuff. And when you can start actually measuring how good you built something, like granted, yes, test of time is one thing, of course, you know, a structure that stands and survives, you know, obviously, but now that we can say we built this really tight house and we did a blower door test to prove it, or, you know, or they ran this embodied carbon analysis on it, or the thermal. I thought the thermal things Enrico did, Barbercheck, I thought that was I was blown away, because just way he hit, like they took like Thomas's wall, for example, and they're like, okay, if you switch like these 2 things in it, it just made it like this much better. And it was just like,
what part of the contest? Someone thought of that?
Yeah.
Which
so
one?
the final 4, they ran the embodied carbon and they ran the thermal performance. And yeah, it was when you guys get to watch the replay, you'll see all that. And like, I thought that was the coolest part. What do you think?
So they figured out a way to, go ahead, Barbercheck, go ahead.
Yeah, again, quite a bit of it I felt was over my head, or like a lot to digest. But it just goes to show the potential of our content areas as far as overlapping. Like, I'm pretty sure I know a few science teachers who would have been like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, listening to that conversation. And so I think that's really cool. And then it also goes to show the aptitude that our students can comprehend. Like when I was listening to that conversation, like it really leveled the playing field between me and the students who are producing this content that we're looking at right now. And that's not like, I never view that as a highly unlevel playing field either, or frequently, but I do think that as a teacher, like it's good to be humbled frequently, because you are constantly in a position of authority, and that can be toxic and detrimental. And so when we realize like the brain power, the teenage brain, and I know some of these were college students, but even still, is that powerful. It just, in a way, it makes you frustrated that you realize everything else is an underperformance. You know what I mean? Like this is, so I was just, I was floored that we were breaching on the fringes of my comprehension of all this stuff. And students were like knee, waist, chest deep in it. And it's not just scientific. I mean, it's freaking societal too. You know, the whole debate about global warming, and you know how much carbon goes into stuff and how much carbon comes out. You know, it's just the whole educational experience right there. And it was just, that's the part I'm super impressed by.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was that, like, I think my exact quote was, when they asked me to vote, I'm like, dude, my brain is fried. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it was so cool. So it was kind of funny that, you know, for me, I grew up, I was the jock. I mean, it wasn't like the asshole jock, but like I wasn't the nerdy guy. School is just school. Is something I had to do because that's, you go to school, you get your grades, and you do your sports, and what, you know, parents don't get mad at you and ground you, right? And like, and these people are just at it, like they're nerdy about it, like, you know, like Emily and them. I mean, that's what they say, you know, get nerdy about it and stuff. And like Barbercheck was saying, like it was, I mean, I got it. I understood what they're saying. It was so awesome, but it was still like almost mind blowing to, I don't know. It was impressive, man. It definitely challenged it. And that, just that, I don't know, 15 minutes of those presentations was like sitting through, in a good way, like probably a week's worth of grad school topic lectures or, you know, presentations. I mean, it was very condensed in a very good manner too. I mean, I don't know, it was, but like the mental capacity for me, I mean, that's what it was like doing. Like, I mean, it was like, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, this is, and I mean, I was like writing, you know, trying to take mental notes and write down notes, because one of the one they're talking about, my former students, we're going to be building a wall very similar to that. Well, they're like, okay, well, if you change from rock wool insulation in the insulated T-studs to the bare naked T-studs and put in cellulose, well, now your moisture content is like, there could be a slight problem with moisture, with condensation. They're like, well, that takes care of all that and fixes this. And then embodied carbon analysis came up, like, yeah, if you switch the cellulose, it drops it like this much. And I was just like, switching like one material is, or add half a more inch to the outside, the external insulation, like improves it by this much more. It's just like a half an inch, but you know, you wrap that all the way around a house. That's a lot of square footage, but dude, it was cool, man. I was
awesome. I mean, you know, it's inspiring, but then on a practical level, like this house is not insulated, and I can feel the wind go through, and I have to crank the heat way up, and that's costing me money, which then I have to burn more hydrocarbons because I don't have solar panels. And so times me, I'm probably like one of a billion people that have to do the same thing, living in houses that are not insulated properly. And so you're talking how much money you're talking, because it's per month. I'm probably paying an extra $100 a month per month. And it's not a big house. This place is literally a garage with an apartment above. It's a carriage house. So like,
You,
this
you
is
know,
important work.
what I liked about that and the topic too, because I agree completely with you, Ron. And I got a similar house, and so you think I'm gonna improve it, and you think I'm gonna, spray foam's a really good product. You know what I mean? And then I wasn't aware that the potential to buy a building product that takes more energy than it will save over the course of its lifetime is like pretty realistic. Like it,
Oh,
and like marketing would have you believe otherwise, of course, right? So I didn't realize that. And then yeah, just to better equip myself with that knowledge of, because like I teach in a pretty conservative area, so like unfortunately being green is you know leftist liberal crazy shit, but
you gotta be green,
yeah, that's the
not,
other, yeah,
not
yeah,
green, green.
even
That's
though
how
none of us are here, but
efficient. Everybody cares
it's
about
not
green.
that
That's not political.
um
Everybody cares
it's
about
not,
green.
and it's not like super bad, but it is just like you gotta like, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you got to dance around it, but it's easier to present as what? No, it just costs this much energy to produce. And when you have, I think I did find when I was doing like research on here, like the embodied carbon database that they were referencing, and the fact that some things take carbon out of the atmosphere. And it just that cause and effect thinking. That's the point I'm trying to make here is there's a lot of knowledge that we teach that isn't exactly cause and effect. Like we don't know the cause and effect of the quadratic equation. Like what does that really cause? What does that really affect? But this type of knowledge is more like here and now. This knowledge is being used on this application. What is the cause and effect of using your spray foam product, or using a product that has to be shipped across the country, or using, and I really appreciated that. That was pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Now how do they do the calculations? This is my, total naive. I don't like, like when I do car stuff, like or even like I'm working on this product that I've been working on. And when I work with this student, I say, okay, is it going to bend? And we feel it, we check it, but I go, hey, what if we go up to 1/2 inch steel instead of 1/4 inch steel? What's going to happen? And he's like, well, I would normally think, oh, we'll have to get that actual piece of steel. He's like, no, we'll simulate it. So he goes online to SolidWorks and he simulates it, and we look at the bend factor. What do you do here? Like, how do you know which one is more efficient? What do you calculate?
So Enrico, who was with EMU, like they do passive half training. He's the one that did the thermal thing, and there's a whole bunch of things you can use. There's like Woofy, which is super confusing for the non-professional. So I've been told, and I've never messed with it. There's a whole bunch of programs that will do this thermal, like they have set things of materials that they know will perform certain ways or whatever, and they just either plug it into the software and I don't have the diagram pictures, but it shows, warm on this side, cold on this side, and then the color spectrum goes through or doesn't go through or whatever. So that was really cool. And then the carbon embodiment is new software. I think they call it Beam. So they're still building their database because product companies are starting to put out this and these carbon analysis that they've had done and stuff so they could put it into this Beam software, and softwares like it or whatever. So that's how they figured all that stuff out for us.
But did the students give you a number, like an efficiency number? Okay, the judges would do this.
Yeah, so judges wise, we just picked like, all right, we just compared it one to the other. Like, okay, building A is probably better than building B on the carbon footprint.
Okay.
And then, but for the final 4 contestants, then they did the actual analysis of those wall assemblies and kicked out some actual data, which was really cool. And then of course, then, you know, the debate probably got going a little longer than it should on whether you could really rely on that data because of topics we've already discussed. But at least you had something. You're still comparing them all the same way, right? I mean, you know, it was still a fair comparison, whether it's truly an accurate comparison, and you know, they're going to argue. But as far as comparing it from A to B to C to D, they were all judged the same on that part. So it was really cool. Like I said, it's one of those things. I think we're going to see that get refined over the years. That's becoming a very big deal and importance. And they, you know, one of their big things was also just bringing the awareness about, hey, we know this is better. Why not do it because it's better, kind of thing. You know, that was kind of one of the arguments. Like, okay, yes, maybe it's not perfect, but you know it's better. Like it's, you know, like it's like your diet. Like you gonna go eat McDonald's or you gonna eat Subway. All right, yeah, it's both fast food, but let's face it, you know, eating, you know, sandwich or with, you know, lettuce or whatever, you know, vegetables and stuff compared to Big Mac is probably going to be better for you, and we know that, right? So it's kind of one of those things. Like it, you know, they kind of wanted to prove the point that there is better ways of doing things. We know this. That part of it's proven, whether you think this system is right or wrong. You know, so that was, like I said, the conversation on that one can go on forever. But it's just, it was cool though. Like the students, I mean, I was impressed. Like Matt said. Sorry, my kids are being loud. I was impressed that, you know, students are thinking about this and comprehending it and putting it in there. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been doing it at that age. So
that's wild. So can you give us a walkthrough of the winner real quick? Like why, you know, maybe some points on like why this was the winner.
Okay. So, and Barbara could probably help. He watched this part too. So one of the big things was they really liked one of the arguments came up in the embodied carbon thing was technically we shouldn't be doing anything, right? Like don't use anything, don't build anything. You're not taking away from forest, you're not producing whatever, right? So he got kind of big points for the fact that this team of students, you know, retrofitted a building that already exists and improved it, like significantly would have improved its performance, and in a responsible, you know, in a responsible way to the earth environment and all that kind of stuff. So that got a lot of bonus points, but ultimately it just came down to judges like, what's your reason for liking it best? I mean, we all had our reasons, you know, like I liked the other wall better that was in California because of the simplicity. Not both these were simple, but like the one down there I voted for because I could take that wall, tweak it a couple different ways and build it tomorrow here in my climate zone and it works, you know? So everybody kind of had and that was the thing. That was why there was such a spread of judges and they pulled the audience too for the final 2 points. And so, you know, it's one of those things where you got a variety of people, kind of, there's a variety of wall. It was kind of a little bit more real life because there's just so many ways of looking at it. So that's really how the judging came down to. It's just, what do you like best? What's, you know, it could be as simple as like me, you know, hey, I could build this wall. I like the assembly. That's why I voted for it. You know, other people really like the retrofit because it was a retrofit. So
this is not a foot race. You know, it's not like there's a clear winner or loser. It's like you know, there's almost an art element to it, or there's probably a better term than art, but there's a kind of an artistic approach to it, or just I guess design thinking. You know, it's your designers are going to have different weights on different criteria and different preferences, and at the end of the day, there may be no objective score between two of these. I don't know, but it's pretty. I think every industry should be taking this playbook, this sweet wall assembly, and and just use it as a template for their sector. So I don't know what the equivalent would be in like the machining sector, but they could come up with, the next satellite part. How is it going to be made, or whatever, and get a bunch of industry executives, reach out to shop teachers and say, here's the competition.
Run
We're
it.
going to network.
Totally.
Every industry should be copying this template right now. Like, this is an awesome template.
That's
And
cool.
how many kids are so much smarter about better building now? I could have done this on my own, Matt. I'm not sure if you'd have been comfortable doing it on your own, and then scale that up times the 100 of, maybe not 100, but the bunch of other teachers who participated. Plus, that's not even counting like the people on the sidelines who are like maybe on this panel right now, or just listening to it, or following it on Instagram from a distance. I mean, it's really a smart move.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I mean, and I had people message me like, "Hey, they doing this next year?" Like, I'm just I want to kind of like Ron. I want to build a house in the future. I'm like just a building science kind of enthusiast or follower, but not a builder, not a teacher. But I want to build a wall, and I think I have a good assembly. So I mean, the common layman is learning this stuff, which is the whole point of building better customers, right? Even with our students, not everyone's going in trades, but they, have a better understanding of, what vehicles they should buy, or how a vehicle should run, or why they should buy this house over this house, or when I repair my house or my car, why I should do this, So yeah, you're right. I mean, Travis and Joe and them started something pretty good idea for fun. And then Connor really tweaked it down to something. Well, he put the teacher spin on it, I guess, you could say. I mean, the grading wise and stuff, and really organized it well. And I mean, we're already talking. I'm on an email thread with all these judges, already talking about what's in it for next year. Like, let's one of the ideas I threw out early on before this was over was, hey, next time why don't we do a retrofit competition and set parameters of, say, budget, and everybody starts off with the same problem. It's like, we have this house, this residential house. This is what the wall structure. This is what the wall structure is. What are you going to do with this budget? Which budget we may have to tweak because of where, Chicago to Taylorville is a big deal. New York to Barbercheck is a big deal. I mean, there's differences in budgets, right? But everyone starts off with the same problem, kind of like we would for a student. What are you going to do to make it better? Go.
Totally.
What I loved about it, and why I'd like to see other industries copy it, is it wasn't like, I've done some competitions hosted by industry before that are like video contests where you show us, showing off your program and different things like that. And sometimes you participate these and you get your students involved, and you really get no follow-up or no, anything of substance. But this was like, and I don't know how sustainable it'll be or how much it'll be scaled up or down or whatever, but the price of admission was right. The networking, like one thing that really welcomed me into it was, at the start, they're like, I remember watching one of their startup things. They're like, and you can network with the sponsors, with us, like have your students have the conversations. And that was a very welcoming vibe. And that's just it. It just like the building, having that expertise. Like, I think that the teacher of tomorrow is not going to be the holder of knowledge. It's going to be the curator of knowledge. So you're just curating. And that's kind of how I feel my job in this moment now anyways. I may not be the expert, but I'll curate, and I'll schedule a time with Matt Bloomquist with my students so that he, you know what I mean? And I'll, sprinkle in, I'm going to watch the show myself. I'm going to pick the highlight reel, and I'm going to distill it for you. Just like you might watch the highlights of a sports game and not watch the whole game. Like, that's my role, is to give you the information in a short, sweet, condensed, and I'm going to curate it all for you. And the network that's there and the content they created content while hosting the competition. Next year, I have stuff to go off. All those wall assemblies are all case studies I can print off and say, all right, students, evaluate this. I mean, it's just a great win all around.
Yeah, and as judges, we were able to put notes on there that are color coded, so we knew who they're from. And some people were just putting notes that had nothing to do. They're like, "Hey, the way you connected to the floor, change this or change that," even though it's not part of the competition that we're judging. We liked all this because the students did such a good job. And even Barberchecks isn't on there, even though Barberchecks was hand drawn in these little scale model things. I mean, it was very easy to understand from these pictures what was going on. Like I said, you know, most of these were either like an AutoCAD or a SketchUp drawing, where Barberchecks had the hand drawing, plus he actually had little, I don't know, balsa wood models, which was really cool. I mean, you could easily look at it and say, okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I could make, well, you know, when I talk to the students, I say, okay, this is great. I love that. You know, they're gonna, if you know, they're gonna like this, you know. So it was, and we were able to, on this program that Connor put together, we were able to put all these notes. So this little feedback right here is like, I commented on one was, oh, I like this detail, but maybe if you use this, it would have cost way less just in the building price, you know. And for me, who is actually building a house with students, like I'm really looking for that detail or that feedback and stuff. So yeah, Barbercheck's right. Like, not only did you get to participate, but you got to, well, it's like when you do a feedback session in your class, you know, when everybody puts their art project on the wall and the teacher critiques it all. You not only get to see what they say about yours, but you get to see what they say about everybody else's. And yeah, I mean, I was just sitting there watching it. Like I was taking it, like as a teacher, builder, everybody, I was taking it all in, man. It was, I'm glad I was a judge in a, you know, kind of in a selfish way, because man alive, I kind of got a free education along with everybody too. And I got to see all the behind the scenes stuff, which got even more information for me. So yeah, I'm very thankful that I got to be on the judging panel, and it was a great honor. I mean, to have my name tossed into that mix. Oh my God. You know, it's like, you know, it's our little celebrity world in the building science building industry.
This is awesome.
The element I'd like to see considered, I don't know if it'd be sustainable or efficient. So I'm not proposing it as a improvement, more so as an idea. I'm kind of stewing over it still, but it'd be really interesting to see a level of student to student interaction, or maybe a student presentation of the wall. Because that to me right now is the only, maybe not, like I see that they put together their write-ups and stuff like that, but it's weird to me, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It might be what makes this work in a way, that it's hard for me to tell that students did this. Like,
oh, I get you.
You know, like it's not. I don't want this to come off as a like a harsh critique. It's more of an observance. It's interesting to me that like when most contests are like student generated, you know that it's like the video contest where the kid has to be on film, and you know they have the awkward student stance, you know what I mean? Or it's like the gallery is the industrial tech ed, you know, Skills USA, where it's more that student, you just know from the pictures and everything else. This is like you could tell me people put it together, and I guess that's a statement of the caliber of work that you tell me, like adults, professionals. That I could look at this plus what they put together last year. I don't think I'd be able to tell you right out of the gate which one was student generated. And I think, and it's just weird for me to see all of this and not have, besides just through written format, the interaction with the students seems minimal.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to say that.
even if they did
student
like
to student interaction. What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say, even if they did like the present, like presentation with like screen recording, PowerPoint, like going through the slide, going through each picture, talking about it. Like I get what you're saying too. Like I like
here's maybe
you're right. I would never be able to tell the difference between last year's and this year's if there was no names or anything to it. But
which is a cool thing.
Yeah,
but it's like maybe if when the judging was going on, it would have been I think would have been cool, and this would have scared the crap out of me as an instructor. So maybe I wouldn't like this idea, but it also would have been a cool opportunity for my Gabe student or everyone to have like a student rep on from the wall.
Yeah.
And they had talked about, and I think they had thrown that idea around, Travis and Connor were, and I think it was just one of those things where I think they're getting to the point where it was like trying to do too much, like
totally.
In.
And the logistics,
that was on the radar. That I can tell you that idea was on the radar.
And I totally get the logistics of that, because you got time zones, you got like if you'd have told me, hey, you need to have Gabe lined up at this time, I'd been like, oh my gosh, he's got basketball, he's got to take care of his mom, he's got to do that, you know what I mean? Like it would have been another possibly prohibitive criteria. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And a California kid would have been like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yes, right, during another class.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my original. Like, it's not so much a suggestion for improvement, but just more of a thought experiment, out loud idea that I'm still wrestling with. But it was just interesting to see, like, wow, there's none of that like awkward student teenage hormone stuff going on in any of this, You
got to remember too, some of these high school kids that went through this, like half of the 8 was high school students, the other half were, freshly college students. A few of these guys are architect students. Like Steve Basic's son was on there, and I mean Thomas, my former student, barely beat him, and I think that was only because of cost. It was the only thing that kind of helped, because their walls were it was like big brother, baby brother. Like, I mean, or actually it was probably more like cousin, because his was like a T-stud wall, but doubled up for like passive house and stuff. And but yeah, like, but also I think that too, Matt, like I said, the fact that these were so good is probably why we only had 9 submits out of potentially, because there would have been plenty. I mean, you and me are teachers who think this stuff is cool, interesting, and gets into it. But there's other construction teachers who maybe are just getting into this and would have been like, whoa, what? I mean, like the first time it came across our plate, we would have been like, yeah, wait, what? You want me to do a competition against potential architecture students? No way, right? I'm not putting my kids into that. So, but I think at the same time,
what set the hook for me was the opportunity to basically rub shoulders with thought leaders in the industry and put my students in that realm. The networking is what appealed to me. Like, I knew that our application was going to be unique and not super compatible with the constraints of everything else. I knew that us not being an architecture program was going to be we were going to be like sending in pictures of scrap wood, balsa wood models, not this some of the nice SketchUp stuff. But I also knew that they were accepting of that. And so it gave me an opportunity to present a challenge to my students that was really kind of like a little bit of an underdog element, and get them but it also get them the exposure, the network to super influential people in the industry and in the sector. And that's what, like, like I did a CAD Onshape competition. They hosted one, and it wasn't just for teachers and students. It was just for general Onshape users. And I did it live with my students. And I shared the file with them, so they also did it too. And that was pretty cool as well. But it was crickets in the response and in the feedback. Like, I still haven't heard it, and I knew it was another over our skill level kind of challenge. But it was cool for the students to see me being tested. It was at the fringes of my Onshape ability. So it was definitely at the fringes of my students. But I wanted them to see this is how you stretch your comfort zone. And then also it was a challenge where I needed them to show up to bat by hopping on my file and helping me with a few things. But there was no resolution. This feels like there's resolution, and the connection and networking is what makes it super, very unique and awesome of a challenge. Yeah. Again, I really do think that every industry should be copying and pasting this. It's a short term, low commitment, good exposure template that basically exposes your industry. All those sponsors now have how many students interested in possibly working for them. Pretty cool.
Yeah, or buying their product.
That too, as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know what? Like you say all that too, Matt. Like for me, that's kind of why we built the house the way we did. I was like, okay, I love what these guys are doing. I would, not like I want them to be my best friends, but if I build the way they are building, and I straight up told Jake and Steve this. I said, I love what you guys are doing. I want to do exactly what you're doing. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. And on a selfish side, I knew this also puts my foot in the door with them.
Sure.
As in, as the fact that somebody that they could work with that's gonna, heed their advice and, not just be like, hey, you should do this. Okay, whatever. Yeah, thanks for telling me. No, they told me this is what I should do. So we did it and document. So in that way, I kind of used it, like you were saying, to get in there to rub shoulders with them. And luckily for Jake and Steve, what was so attractive the way they built the houses and came up with their design details was something I knew I could teach and use and build. I wouldn't say it was out of my comfort zone, but it was something I'd never done that way before. And so it was fun for the challenges and things. So that, the house build was my little mini, I shouldn't say mini, it was my big wall assembly challenge to use it as the house as a networking platform, way to, get in with these guys, and luckily we're in an industry that they love to share, and they are so anxious to help young kids in the future that it ended up being, that's why I have a personal relationship with these guys now, is because we all have something that each other wants and helps out with, and it's a nice team. It's for everybody in the industry, but yeah, I get it. Like you said, Matt, it's if every industry did this and networked like this and had this competition, I know like, Barbara or Ron, there's the solar car challenges and things like that and stuff.
I'm killing, like, I'm in the Shell Eco Marathon, and
I'm over my head because I'm up against college kids. My students are up against college kids, and we're doing the whole car on Onshape. And these kids, they don't even know what a tie rod is, like they can't even get the wheels to turn, But so little by little, I'm like giving them examples. But I got to tell you, it's great. It's great because we already got some feedback, and they're seeing what they're up against. It's a little bit too high. There should be like a high school category, but it's still great to participate in these competitions. And it's funny to me. I totally agree with you guys. Imagine if every business sponsored some sort of high school shop class project. They could solve so many problems and come up with new ideas that they didn't think of, and plus the community exposure. So yeah, if anybody, sponsor or any business is listening to this, please get in touch with your local shop teacher, because they got the talent just sitting there, and they could do something with it. And that's what a shop teacher does, is the application of ideas.
We should, Ron, we should design a competition.
Yeah.
and then find the sponsors. We could
Let's do it, man.
like, like have you guys seen like the Builders Challenge on Instagram?
I haven't, but I'm sure you guys, yeah.
Just as a network of teachers, I think we could do a pretty good job of designing a competition that is I think there's some, what do you call it, like when you put basically design intent behind lesson planning, universal design learning, there's some fancy acronym behind it. But just like with CAD, you want to be like intentional with your design work so you can go back and make revisions easily. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
I think with education and lesson planning in schools, there's a level of that, and I think that's where some of these other competitions that I've participated in, they've missed their mark. This wall assembly hit it really well. I'm impressed by it, especially given that they're coming from a non-education background. Some of the competitions, like I don't know for sure about this. Would you say the Shell Eco Marathon's on the same caliber of
The Shell Eco
as Baja?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's the problem, is that I don't think they understand that there's so many levels entering. But Baja has to be very rigid because they're dealing with, yeah. So yeah, yeah.
And that's a cool opportunity. Those types of opportunities are awesome to offer to students. And I'm not saying let's take those off the table, but it is, one of the deciding factors was, like, I was really on the fence with this. Like, I'm really redlining just basically everything right now with all the projects I got going on. And one of the deciding factors was it's only for 3 weeks. Like, it was quickly released. I was like, yes, I was like, I can get my students behind it, and then if they don't bite, or they bite crappily, it's just, for me, it's only going to be 3 weeks of misery. Not a year, not. And what I'm wondering, if there's interest, and again, this is just talking and thinking out loud, and hashing it out before like pinpointing an actual solution or action plan, but if we do like design like 3-week challenges between a network of us teachers, put a little bit of hype behind it, and then told the sponsor, and then brought the sponsors on board, in a way, we're kind of at an advantage because we've designed the challenge to work for us as educators. And then the sponsors don't have to do as much, and maybe hopefully they would give more. You know what I'm saying, Ron?
Yeah, 100%. Why not? Because it sounds funny. This is gonna sound funny, but like at some point in time, like, we're the experts. Like, there's no one. We can't wait for Superman. Like, like,
sure. Yeah,
we are the educators of the world, and like, we can't wait for like somebody to fix it. It's just not gonna happen. So yeah, like,
it's funny you say it that way, Rob, because whenever like Travis and them told me I was going to be a judge, and I was like, all right, I was like, oh, I'll do it. But, like I said, I felt underqualified. And Travis is like, dude, you've done these wall assemblies with the students. How are you not qualified? And all right. Oh yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. I mean, again, building science wise, but you're right. Like, sometimes I have to stop, and I don't know, maybe we're being humble or something, but you're like,
imposters.
We know, like, just
that calls it, right?
Like, ask us. Like, it's like, because it's like when administration changes things. It's like, did you talk to the teachers? Did you ask them? Like, why would you change that? Like, this was working perfectly, and then you changed it because the wind blew in Connecticut, right? You just
yeah.
Yep.
We're used to that. We're conditioned to maybe not think it sometimes. And yeah, you're right, Ron. I've called it imposter syndrome, or I used to, like, my handle was even the imposter teacher for a while, because that that sensation is prominent, of, am I qualified to be teaching this? Which I've overcome a lot of that. I think that just comes with time and experience and like clout building, I guess, if that's the right word. But yeah, like, so there's this Builders Challenge, and I've had a hard time following it on Instagram, but it looks like what they do or like on Discord, there's a 3D printing group, and every month they host a new challenge, 3D print something related to video games. And the constraints are usually really simple. And then people just post their pictures, and then it's just a gallery, and it's just kind of like a friendly competition. And yeah, I'm just wondering, it'd be kind of tough with all of our content areas being all over the place, but we do have the social network in place where if we could like
the virtual makes a lot of this possible,
Yeah.
Barbercheck, one of the things me and Dietrich,
Yeah.
Justin, like we talked about it again, but on my schedule just wasn't going to work with finishing up this house. But what we were going to do last year, we were going to do it springtime, but of course, we all know how that went. We were just going to do, because he's down the road from us, we're all in the same conference. We were going to do like a dog house build challenge.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up with, I don't know, maybe come up with a voting system, whether it's Instagram or communities vote, whatever, just something for fun. And then we're going to sell like raffle tickets to each one and raffle off the dog houses, and the proceeds were going to go to our local Humane Society shelters. Like, it's one of those things that's a win-win-win-win for everybody. Publicity, fun little competition, get the kids involved, and so, I mean, we were just going to do that between us, but I mean, it could be something that simple amongst the whole freaking world. I mean, it's, like, I like it. I like the idea of us coming out and these sponsors, getting sponsorship. I don't know if you caught Travis or Connor talking about it, Matt, but dude, this was happening and the sponsors jumped on board. Like,
really?
Yeah, you're right.
Like this wasn't like they went and got all these people and did this. This is one of those things. It was like, oh, you guys are doing this? I'm in. Like, one of the sponsors jumped on the night of us presenting the competition. Like, he was in the crowd and it's like,
Connor could at some point explain the structure so that how do they make it open and so people see it? Like, weird things happen. Like, I have a drawing of a number 5 Roper Whitney hand punch for sheet metal, and it's a drawing on Instagram. And then that was a couple years ago, maybe more than that. And then they got in touch with me and they said, "Oh, can we use your thing? We'll give you credit." And I said, "Yeah," but then they never did. So it's like, it's weird how sponsors flow through. I don't know what, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, Milwaukee Tool did that for me. They asked if they could use a photo. They didn't do it. Well, actually, I guess I've had a few of them. Huber would, like, and sometimes they tell you like it may or may not make the cut or whatever they're working on, but it's usually it's just, hey, can we use it? And of course, yeah, I don't care, whatever. But
yeah.
Does anyone do a skills
traction? I mean, and really, it's one of those things where like, say Barbercheck, whatever it is, says, say you get Harbor Freight behind it. It's kind of one of those things. Once you get one player in the game that's got the clout, then they all come running, and that's kind of how it happened. I think for this Wall 16, they got a couple of the big players that they knew were going to kind of jump on, and as soon as they hit, then the floodgates open.
Does anyone do?
Here's the other thing: anything that has to do with students, everybody's all for. So say it's for the kids.
Yeah.
Does anyone do Skills USA? No. I just curious. I noticed a lot of their stuff went virtual this year, and I'm kind of curious to see, because one deterrent that I've experienced when I've looked into Skills USA is, one, there's like membership fees and dues, and that's just always like, I'm always just like, maybe it's because I'm a millennial, but it's like, oh, and then the other is you got to travel with these kids, and it's like, it's, and then either I'm volunteering that time, or I got to set myself up as a Schedule B faculty, and that's got to get approved, and that's like a big deal. And it's like, and then I got to line up there traveling, and then it's like, and it's kind of sad. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, because like, our school is so small, we can hardly fill a basketball team, but we're fucking married to the idea of having this basketball team. So we like, force these kids to play basketball. And it looks that way sometimes. And I'm like, no, we should be pursuing these more individual sports or these challenges like a Skills USA or something like that. I was just curious if anyone, what their experiences was with it, and then if they got to participate in the more virtual competitions. But I do like this idea of us, like, I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think? Like, if we had to decide right now on a this is going to be a crazy thought experiment. You ready for this? If we had to decide right now on a competition that we would participate in between our cohorts of students, what would it be?
I don't know what it'd be, but I feel like it has to have multiple. It can't just be wood. It just can't be metal. It's got to bring in. It has to have like 3 separate things: 3D printing, wood, metal. Like 3 things out of 8 things. It has to be right.
Multimedia.
What?
Like multimedia.
Yes. Like I don't know what the competition be, but it just because A, it brings in the creativity. B, it brings in knowledge of something else. B, it maybe brings in another class inside your school. Like, so my class would be working with the ag that does the welding and stuff, like the mobile classroom. Like my students worked on it. Not saying every school should go build a mobile classroom, but the ag kids, worked on it. My kids built it. Like my intro kids tore it down. Like it brought in a lot more. It wasn't just my students kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? I guess I like the multimedia idea. Like just because it doesn't pigeonhole into just the wood shop class or the metal shop class, or maybe those two shop classes or students from each one, or maybe you have a student who takes both classes and I don't know.
Yeah. What do you
like
think?
the IU's around us does like a land, air, and sea challenge. So they have like the land robots, the underwater robots, and your drones.
Do you do that, Duke?
No, I was gonna get into it, and then this whole thing got shut down with COVID. That's like so they didn't have it this year. We do the Sea Perch. That's an underwater robot competition. They're just doing it all virtual this year, but like same thing as the TSA, Technology Student Association. We do that as well. But my kids like the hands-on stuff. So they're not offering the hands-on stuff. They're digital photography and she have like the promotional, like they're doing like screen prints, but they're not actually screen printing. They're doing like the designs for the screen print. It's all digital this year. My kids were just not into it. We're heavy like into the robots, but there wasn't any robots. Plus, the rules for the school, the competitions, or the clubs just opened up like a week ago. So,
what do you think, Ron? What would you, if we had to decide right now? What do you think?
Well, I like stuff that you gotta break or tap. So and I like tight stuff, like criteria. So like what I think what maybe Bloomquist was saying, that you choose one house and then I like the baselines the same. For me, it's a little bit wild to compare like some brownstone in New York City to like something in Kansas or whatever, So like, because like you're gonna get, it's a wild outcome, So something that has like some sort of control, and then the variable is you're trying to make it better, and something smaller than a shoebox, and something you can break and weigh. I do the flash. I don't know. Does this make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, yeah, it makes good sense. Because think about it, like even with my idea with the multimedia thing, you could take guidelines that let's say example, you're building your bridge, right? In physics class, we all had to build a toothpick bridge. Okay, well, instead of toothpicks, now you can choose out of 5 things to build your bridge. And it has to fit these requirements, this size, weigh this much, this long, tall, like it has to fit all these requirements, but you can use let's say 5 different materials. You got
Oh, yeah, you
five
could use-
materials to choose from. You can use 3 of those,
Yeah, that's interesting.
but it has to fit inside that criteria.
And one more piece to the puzzle, which is hard to do, very hard to conceive of it, is you can't let them outspend each other. So like, let's say they build a bridge out of titanium. Yeah, of course, the rich kids are going to win. You know? So like what I do with the flashlight challenge is I say, it's not the brightest flashlight, it's the lightest flashlight. And so there's a minimum with the light because we measure it with a luminometer. Then there's a minimum drop 5 feet. It's got to turn on and turn off. That's like a requirement. And then put that thing on the scale. And that's where they're fighting and ripping things apart and trying to figure stuff out to get it to weigh less. So they're not outspending each other. So if it was, because every kid's like, I'll make it the brightest. I'm like, yeah, because you're going to go buy a battery that's more powerful than the other kid's battery. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I know you can go buy a battery, you know? So if they could somehow not outspend each other, I know that's tough to do. So
no, that's a valid constraint. I do that constraint with just all the projects in the shop, just because they got to have that reality check.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be cool if we're just building on this thought experiment. I think it would be cool if it was like a short term style competition. You know, there's this long, just because.
Yeah, you gotta do
it. If they
it.
have a year, they take a year. If they have a week, they take a week. Like and it's kind of cool when you sprint through something. And then if it flounders, you're only suffering for so long.
That is the word. That's the Silicon Valley word, a sprint. They call it a sprint with product development. Lately
I told them that. I told Silicon Valley to use the word sprint.
They probably got it from a shop t-shirt. The funny thing is that's what they're talking about now is this lean startup thing, is that they don't want you to even, like, they're talking about a 1 week sprint. And what they'll do is they'll, like, everybody gets a hotel room and then they don't stop working until the end of the week when they got something to deliver to a customer. A sprint.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're right. Like if you got an unlimited budget and you got unlimited time, you are not going to finish.
Right.
Over design it and you're not going to show your customer. Yeah.
And then the other cool thing, if we're building on this thought experiment, it would be really, really cool. And this would be really, really creative challenge to make this happen. But it'd be really cool if it solved like a current problem. So the most recent example I'm thinking of is I watched this happen on TikTok. I feel like I watched history live on TikTok, and it was some kid. It was a kid, teenager. I don't know what his connection was to somebody with Parkinson's, but he realized if you have Parkinson's, I guess one of the symptoms is like a shaky hand. I don't know much about this stuff. The most I learned about it was watching this whole story unfold live, and without journalism. Like these were the humans behind the scenes creating this story. And he's like, hey guys, I just 3D printed this design that for a pill bottle that if someone's with Parkinson's or having a seizure, they could dispose these pills while their hand is uncontrollably shaking. And it would just make their life easy. It would solve a problem. And other tech talkers, they call them tech talk, that are more into tech and 3D printing, caught wind of it. And they're like, hey man, like one of them was really good at patent law. He says, we're going to help you get an open source patent on this so nobody can steal it and lock you out from your own design. You know what I mean? And he's like, well, I want it to be available to the general public. And they're like, no, we got you. We're going to make sure it's still available. We're just going to make sure that no one can lock you out from your own design. So then he's got patent attorneys going up to bat through TikTok. He's got another person who's like, hey, I see your design, but there's one more thing I want to improve upon. And he started, and he had 3D printers, so he started 3D printing. So I'm watching that kind of like similar to what's happening right now on this panel, but all these people and this thing happened, this improvement to the world just showed up through a bunch of people messing with each other on TikTok. And it was just a really cool thing to watch, and I'm surprised I haven't seen any journalism on it. Like, part of me wants to like put on my journalism hat and dig deep and interview these people and write the
Don't hold your breath.
But
what's the name of it?
yeah, right, yeah.
What's the name of it?
But oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll see if I can track down.
That's all right. I get the idea. Yeah, totally.
And message it to you. But my point is, I tell that story because yeah, but see, that stuff's tough to do because usually when you think of those problems, you also think of the solution in a lot of it. So it wasn't like a problem that had competition behind it. I guess.
I see what you're saying, right?
Start.
Yeah. I mean, even like sometimes you can even do simple things like come up with a, maybe they design their own, phone case or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And then this way, like, the phone case maybe has, what would be a nice one would be like, all right, come up with a way to enhance the speaker situation, like a phone holder that you put it down and the speak. So whoever can come up with the most decibels, but it weighs the least. So then, you have a performance to weight ratio, and that could be.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. And then you are open to multiple mediums: wood, metal, plastic.
Anything you want, plastic. Yep. Cast it in. You could cast it. You could do whatever. Yeah.
And it'd be. I guess that would be a good like manufacturing challenge, and that's actually a good like way to frame it when you think about like what manufacturing challenges are out there, because then it does open it up to multiple mediums. It does keep it small. It does make it breakable, and somewhat objective too with your criteria. Yeah, the decibel one would work.
That thing and try and break it.
If we did that, you could get like your sponsors could include basically all your material suppliers: lumber, PLA, metal. But then also there may be some tech companies you could get into sponsoring you as well. Incorporate lighting, smart devices. There's maybe that's phone accessory sponsors. I'm just trying to think. I'm just thinking out loud.
Totally.
All these drawing programs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But like Barbacek said before, that presentation component is nice too, because kids really did the work, and then they have ownership to the product.
I love that. You want to hear from the kids,
And you know what would be cool, and this is piggybacking off of Ron's crowd grading model idea, is if there was a way to make the designs that say we all did this. So we got a pool of 5 designs, and we take the name off all the designs, and then my students would judge 4 designs, and Matt's students would judge 4 other people's design. You know what I mean? And our students it'd be like the gallery walk, they call it in other classrooms, where they're inspecting other work. But I find that to be a very growth inducing activities when students can look at something and evaluate it. And I personally like the idea that it's a little bit external and remote, because I don't know if it's because of the small town vibe or whatever, but like I found internal competition to get a little bit toxic. But if it's external and distant competition, it's like a lot better. It just plays out smoother for me,
It's that's in the DNA everywhere. It's like we're live. I'm talking to you, and it's recording, so I'm here. You know what I mean? And it's like, and we have a set time, and everybody's showing up, type of thing. But if it was like, yeah, I'll give you a call, you might not even make the call. So like, like there's a certain amount of pressure with public that makes it, much more everybody's present, and that's what. Even Joe Rogan would talk about that. He's like, he's just having conversations with his friends, but because there's a set time and they record it, now it's happening, So, I agree. Yeah. If you make these things public, even you're right. Even like having a small competition at your high school should be public, because at least then other people can see it. And then the kids know, okay, I have to show up. I have to have this thing done. And they will force themselves to finish it, you know?
Yeah. But my point is like external, like not so much public versus non-public, just the style of competition. Like we could do this external competition and not publicize it, and it would still be better for me than doing internal competition. It just, I don't know. I think it's because my kids have been stuck with the same kids forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my cohort of students, when you look at them, like I have to remind myself, like, oh, like Abby's been in the same group as Gabe for 12 years straight, 8 hours a day, all day long. You know what I mean? And they've been through 2 breakups, and now they're just friends. You know what I mean? And somebody's dating somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that person's
Well,
mom,
and also on that too,
dad. What's
well,
that?
and the other thing too is after a while, you kind of get tired of beating or being beat by the same people. Like, okay,
Yes,
you know,
right.
like, because I'll do like competitions, like, okay, who's going to frame this wall the fastest, which group? Well, okay, the bragging rights are great for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then what? You know,
when the data pool is small, then you can predict who's going to win already, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for all the students that don't think they can win. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I guess that's a good point. That what's attractive to this for me is it does enlarge the data pool past the point of just predicting, oh, Gabe's going to win that again. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great point. That I'm glad you said that. That helps me understand my understanding.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, like I know what you mean. I mean, we had some surprises with our competition. People came out of nowhere because you couldn't outdo, even if someone's into it, you like the normal A student, the B student or C student or whatever, like the kid that doesn't win normally, they would win because they would get out of the box, you know. So out of the box kids were the ones that won, you know, but I also have like an overcrowded situation. So they're mixed and matched all the time. We get new kids like, oh my God, like it must be so different from where you're teaching, because we get new kids that literally just got to the country the year before. And then we got kids who have been there and then left and went back to their country. So it's like, it's a revolving door. Yeah. Not a lot of kids have been there the whole time. Like from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Yeah, see, like our classes, they may get 2 new students through their whole school career.
Oh
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and when you say class, you like 1 grade.
Yeah, like from kindergarten to graduation, they may gain or lose, I'd say, an average of 3 students through your whole kindergarten to graduation. Like,
amazing
for us, you know. I mean, I'm part of BarberCheck's probably the same way. Like, there's it's not like every year you meet new kids. That happens very rarely.
In fact, I don't think I'm teaching a new student this year.
This is amazing. It's totally
every student.
Yeah, there's not like a new student in class. Like if there's a new student, the whole school knows about a new student. Like it's not like, oh, we got a new student in English class. No, there's a new student in the high school.
Oh man.
Yeah,
I'm one exit away from Jersey. I get new kids every marking period.
Yeah, all the time, right?
Like a rotating door. And then they're saying everyone's moving in from Jersey because of the COVID. So I'm just waiting, but they're probably still going to the school they moved from because it's online. Yeah. They moved from like Ron's town. They're probably still taking his classes. But like next year when they have to go physically, Like,
I'm teaching kids that went down to Mexico. They're like still taking my class. Yeah, it's hilarious. But but this is the thing: the East Coast little pocket, the New York City East Coast, that's the gateway. Like everyone enters there, or Florida. This is like a gateway point. This is like a big entrance. You know, this is an international crazy place. You know, it's just everyone's here. You could get anyone from any walk of life is here. You know. But anyway, off topic. The competition. We got to come up with a way that it crosses all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got one. We got a night. We sprinted one out in a
Yes. All right.
way. Phone speaker, multi-medium, short term.
Yeah, I like that.
Decibel test, brake test.
I like that one because it's like an engineering one, but it's also a material one, and it's this big. It's so you can't fuck it up. Like
passes the shoebox test.
Yeah, even if you spend some time on it, it's not going to ruin your life. It's this big. I like that. So it's low cost. You could just mess around. You could break it and still rebuild it one day later. No big deal.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna end the recording here. We can hang for a minute or two. Let me just see. It's getting kind of late. All right. Thanks for listening to Shop Class Podcast. We spun around a million topics. It was great. All right. We're here every Wednesday. And and then Blue Class, you'll let us know when they're going to come out with the video for the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll try to put that in the email or whatever, and or if we post up some new videos on the YouTube, I can send something out, but it usually takes a day or two for them to get it posted.
No problem. Awesome. All right, I'm going to end it now. Okay.